the Talk Show's family is here to find your own voice from within. So with me today, I've got Amanda Murray, Nick Motich, and Dr. Biget Tan. And our topic today is how do you release the fear that is holding you back? And Nick, I know you chose this topic, and I know if you want to release the things that are holding you back, first you have to learn some things. You have to ask yourself a few questions, and you have to prepare for the battle that you're facing. And Nick, would you like to explain to our audience, please, why did you choose this topic?
Sure. So for me, it's a very real and ongoing process, and it's something that I'm going through as we speak. And so it's something that is just really I'm just really interested to talk to other people about it and what your techniques are for releasing that fear. For me, it's a constant battle. I know logically that I am holding myself back by playing small and being keeping my cards close to my chest and all those little things that I do personally. But at the same time, I also know that what I'm currently doing in my life, moving from a career that I was in that wasn't in alignment, starting my own business that is in complete alignment, I know that is going to be successful. I just know it is. And so me holding myself back is just silly, really. And I'm just looking for ways and other people's strategies for how they deal with that and how they move themselves forward and become the best and brightest version of themselves.
I love your topic because I think that everybody struggles with this, no matter what point in your life you're at, that we struggle with those fears that pop in all the time. And so often, you're right, we make ourselves smaller than we are. And essentially, one of the things that I do to help myself is to constantly think of gratitude and things that I'm grateful for, in order to like shift my thinking when I get into that fear state as to what is it that I can be grateful for in this moment, because that raises my vibration and allows for more positives to come into my life. And so essentially, when I get into those like negative self-doubting states, I then try to think about, okay, what is it that I can learn from this situation? Who can I surround myself with that is going to help me grow? And also, what can I be grateful for in this moment? Dr. Brigitte, what do you think?
I love that. Thank that, Amanda. I just love what you said with the gratitude in particular, because then it raises your energy and allow you to be. There is the energy, vibrational energy chart shows where if you have fear, your energy is way down here, and then with the gratitude, your energy is up here. Where in this chart. Studies by Dr. Hawkins, and the universe flow in the higher energy, and that is so beautiful. I would say a couple things that I usually recommend my clients, and when fear comes, I still practice. The first being, be willing to be willing. Whether you want to release fear or guilt with my work, a lot of time it is the thank you. And thank you. Oh, Agadir, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you? And feel welcome to share your thoughts as well in the comment. Uh, what was I? So the first things would be to be willing to be willing. And it's not even be willing, just be willing to be willing. Because whether in my line of work, it might be releasing fear, it could be releasing of guilt or anger, grief in general. But just kind of like the well-known teacher Mary Morrissey says, be willing to open a corner of your mind or a corner of your heart to be to the other part of that, and along with that, take a baby steps, just a tiny little baby steps to toward where you want to be. And so, in other words, if you say, okay, I got to send this proposal. So a few little times back, I got to send a proposal. I was like, well, perhaps today you don't send a proposal. Perhaps today you take the baby step of drafting the proposal. And then the next day you're like, okay, well, maybe you know what, today I have the draft, that today I write it. And then the next day you're like, building it up and take just the next baby step. We know baby step can take us up Mount Everest. So those are the two main things I would say to start with when we want to release fear. What about you, Numsa? What tips or techniques do you do?
I think for me, I used to fear a lot, and fear used to hold me back a lot. I was scared of being judged, and I was scared of, like, I'm in UK. I'll be like, as an African person, these people take me serious or what I do. But I also agree with Nick that fear is a constant battle. But how I've been able to release fear is I pray a lot and I fast a lot. And when I pray and I fast, I connect myself to my higher being. And it actually helps me to live that freedom and realize that the people that I'm scared of, they are the people that will cheer me up. They are the people that can help me to achieve the things that I want to achieve. But I'm scared if they can believe my message, or I'm scared if I'm good enough. So it does help me. And also meditation. I use meditation for removing fear from your soul. It does really help, because fear comes from within. Also, I know some people, they say you have to have confidence, you have to have this, but fear never ever go away. Is always gonna be. You just have to let go that, yes, I am aware that you are there, and release it by doing meditation and by prayer. Sometimes I fast 3 days a week, and it does help me to connect with my higher self. And when I really want to go extremely low for 90 days, I've never done days, or sometimes I go 20 days. That's connected. When I do that, it does help me to actually my like accept failure. If I've done something in the past and failed, it helps me to realize that actually wasn't a failure, it was a learning. When someone rejects me, it makes me realize that this person that rejects me, are they actually my creator, or they actually have problems in their own lives? And or the success, it helps me to actually work my success and being grateful. Like Amanda, you were saying, you spoke about gratefulness, and being grateful, sometimes it helps me to look back at the things that I've been able to achieve, and ask myself, why am I scared now? Intimacy wise, it helps me to go for the things what I want. If I want to be to be dating somebody, or like Dr. Biggett, you said, you have to be willing to be willing, and also knowing that baby steps are very important. Some people think that, okay, I want to do this today, it's gonna go amazingly, and if it's not going amazingly, why? So they start being too hard on themselves. So baby step, I agree with you, Dr. Biggett. Over to you, Nick.
Yeah, as you were excuse me, as you were talking, I was just thinking about how often those fears that we have that are holding us back end up, when you push through that and end up doing what you know you need to do, how often they're just completely unfounded, and you just made up whatever it was that the issue, or you thought was going to be the issue, is not at all the case. The reaction you get from the person or whatever the situation is actually super positive. And so I think for me, it's trying to maintain that perspective as well. Is that is this fear real? Number one, and then once you push through it to see what the results are, is it's just encouraging in a lot of cases. And then also, if you are having let's say some setbacks or some failures, I guess, a lot of times for me, those are showing me that I'm out of alignment and are trying to correct me onto the right path. So just trying to keep that in mind too, and taking the lessons too from your perceived failures and trying to get more in alignment. So I'll just give you kind of an example of what's going on for me right now. So yeah, resigned from the only profession I ever knew, starting my own business. And again, I know that this is what I need to be doing. And right now I'm in this space where I'm kind of holding myself back and not truly going all in on it. And right now everything's kind of like ground to a halt in my progress. So the photos I'm waiting for, not happening. Website that I'm waiting on, not happening. And it's this realization I have had actually in the last couple of days, is that it's actually myself, and it's that I'm not going all in on what I know I need to be doing. And also for me, it's I'm not being completely authentic, and I'm not being completely not putting myself out there. And I truly believe that because I'm not in that complete alignment, and I'm not going for it and just being authentically me, that is why I'm right now hitting these roadblocks. So again, I think that having that awareness and that perspective that is the case, and it's not someone externally or the universe trying to like trip you up. It's actually trying to show you where you're out of alignment. So that's been helpful for me in the last little bit.
I love when you said that you're not being authentically you, because that's something that I always talk about, is that we want to become unapologetically ourselves. And I think that's when we can be unapologetically ourselves, that's when we really truly stand in our power. And also, I think whenever we're trying something new, those fears come up, right? And so we want to try new things, but also fear arises when you try something new. Because think about when, like, the first time you learned how to ride a bike, right? Like, it's scary, but then once you learn how to ride a bike, you can ride a bike no matter how many years down the road it is that you haven't ridden a bike for a while. You can still get back on, and the first few minutes might be a little bit wobbly and scary, but then once you've got it again. Your brain remembers how to do it. And so when we're trying something new again, it's like that fear of getting on the bike for the first time when you're a little kid, right? Like it's that, like, I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. What am I doing? But yet we know we can ride a bike down eventually, no matter what. Almost every single person in the world could learn how to ride a bike if they needed to, right? And so unless you have some extreme physical disability, but there are still bikes that will help people who have extreme disabilities too. And so, but we have that fear, even though we know we can do it. And so often I think that fear holds us back from something that we're like, oh, why didn't I just try this sooner? Right? Like when you learn how to ride your bike, finally, you're like, why was I so scared to go on two wheels? Like, especially if you had the training wheels, right? Like you should, when you look back at it, you're like, oh, that was so stupid of me. But when you're in it in that moment, the fear is very real. And so I always try to look at it as, when I'm trying something new, it's a learning opportunity. And that fear is me, my body and my cells and every part of me wanting to learn and being willing to learn and stepping into that learning zone. And sometimes that can shift my perspective out of the fear to learning. And then it just like shifts my perspective just that tiny bit, because that helps me get get into my authenticity as well. But I'm the same as you, Nick. Sometimes I know I should be posting on social media and stuff more often, and I know I should be doing these things, and then life gets busy. Like, it's been the chaos of the start of the school year, and I haven't been doing those things as much to be out in the world as on media as authentically myself, but doing some of that inner work ahead of time to get certain things done that I've been working on, so that I can be present again in social media to get some of the work that I'm doing out there. And it's on a course that I'm building, and on some different workshop stuff that I'm building. And so I haven't been out there as much on social media, but I'm doing kind of that burrowing inside time right now. And I'm like, oh, this is a lot of work. And I'm a little bit scared to put it out there, but soon enough I'll put it out there, and that fear will go away, right? So I think that's something that we need to recognize in ourselves sometimes, is that anytime we're learning something new, sometimes that fear will come in, because even as a child, when you learn something that you knew eventually you'd know how to do no matter what, there's fear in that moment. You're on mute, Dr. Brigitte.
I love what you say about sometimes you, like the bicycle example, how you just kind of scared about something, but then once you start doing that, it's something that you will be able to do, and you'll be able to do for typically for life. And I think that's beautiful illustrations that shows that sometimes people misunderstood fear. To me, it's a lot of time with my clients. A lot of people misunderstood fear in general. And that's part of when you misunderstood something. It's actually make the monster even more of a monster, so to say. It's kind of like, if you have those somebody wearing a monster suit, and you don't know they're wearing a monster suit, they will be so scary. But if you're like, oh, okay, so I understand, this is just somebody wearing a monster suit, then it's not so scary. And so for me, when I teach my client, those who are doing some the different courses, I help them understand. So what is fear for the audience here? What is fear? Well, we talk about fear and releasing fear all the time, but it's almost like if you come to me during my day as an oncologist and you say, oh, I have cancer and I want treatment with that, but then we don't even know what cancer you have. They will be like shooting in the dark, and that's not particularly productive. So what is really fear? A lot of time we are afraid of fear, and because fear got bad reputations partly. And so we said we shouldn't be fearful. But really, and in truth, is you want to be fearful. You want to have fear. Imagine if you do not have fear of falling from tall places. You'll just be going to be walking off a really tall building. That will be so unhealthy. Your fear of the power of gravity is really, really good. If you have a cat, one time I cat sit. I hosted a couple cats from for a friend. So the cat come to stay with me because he's in the midst of moving. And this cat apparently does not, they didn't have fear of fire. Oh my goodness! And I don't even know why, but I have gas stove, so there are fires when I cook anything. And this cat just going, you. I was fearful for their life. Never mind what have you. I'm like, oh my god, what do you do? Get out of the stove! I was just like, okay, not only catch them on the table, they have no fear of fire. So fear is healthy. Fear come to us from back in the day, and a lot of time we fear change. Congratulations to you, Nick, for the change that you have moving forward to become an entrepreneur, from my understanding. And so, but at this, our logical mind a lot of times still say, okay, yeah, this is great, and what have you. And then there is the part of us that is who are living in the cage not so long in the cave not so long ago, and that part says change equal danger, and danger equal death, because if you if we were a cave woman and caveman, any change a lot of time can be very detrimental. So we want to embrace that fear is normal to start with, such that it's not making it so big in our mind. Oh my God, I'm fearful, this must mean something. To say, okay, there is change, there is fear. It's kind of like side by side. If you put sugar outside in summer and will come kind of situation. So it's really not that big of a deal to understand. And then alongside with that understanding, I usually tell my client is to understand what is it really fear. And this is the other part where people has misunderstanding. Why? Because even the dictionary say it in a very interesting way. If you look at the Webster dictionary online, it say fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous. Now that's a very important thing, caused by a belief. And so many times we feel fear. It's so uncomfortable. And let me ask you, everyone here on the show and every audience listening, where would you feel fear? If you're really tuning in, where do you feel it in your body? Because you thought of time feel it in the body. It might be in your chest and your something like that. But in that scenario, then if you feel fear, it's emotions. But then you want to remember that your emotions, with an exception of the three basic emotions that we were born with, which is like, dislike, and happiness, or the ability to be happy. Fear come from your belief. Your belief come from your mind. And so we want to be like Emerson say, stand guard at the portal of your mind, such that you keep it on track, what's coming to your mind, what's creating your belief, and therefore can create or disintegrate your fear. What about you, Numsa?
Like it, Dr. Bickett, when you have to be aware of what's going in our mind and deal with our fears. And Nikki, you spoke about things that are holding you back, and the website that is meant to happening. And I think we all went through. It's like when I started my business as well, I went through that as well, and things were not happening, but I thought it was holding myself back. But I realized that sometimes when we rush things, we end up connecting ourselves with the wrong goal. And sometimes it could be like God or the universe, whatever your beliefs that might be, tell you that, hold on a minute, the person that is meant to build your website, they're not ready. And they will come to you and build your own website. I know I've tried, like myself, when I was starting my business, I was trying to push things very, very quickly, and there was something inside of me that was like telling me to hold back a little bit. But the more I pushed, the more I got the wrong people to do things. So sometimes it depends. Sometimes we might take it as a fear, like what Dr. Big saying is very important to understand what a fear is. And also, this is the career that you've never done before, and there must be doubt, like, am I enough for anything? We all do that. Now myself, that I've connected to right people that know exactly what they're doing, having a coach, it's not there so much anymore. When I have a coach, basically when somebody says, no, sir, you got to do this, what I do is I record them when they are speaking, and those coaches are very, very tough. And when I feel like there's a fear that is coming up, I have to play that. Ask myself, what are the consequences if I go and face them and I've not done what they asked me to do? It's gonna believe in me, and they're not gonna want to help. I have to have all those things that if this person, even though I'm paying them, but they're trusting me that I can do this. So that means they trust me to do it. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. And like I went to an event with the Shanda, and I ended up, and she was like, you guys go to create a summit, and then she gave us a homework. I'm thinking it's a homework, really doing it. And I was like, I come back and I'm like, we are actually doing this summit. And she was like, yes, it's happening. But there was fear in me. But then I recorded and got some coaches like Amanda. You guys gave me a little bit of comfort that we'll be okay. And I think that's what Nick does. He needs, like, when you are feeling fear, you need to have Amanda and us on speed dial to say, this is what I'm feeling. And so we can give you those words of, you can do this, even if we know it's tough. We just that you can, because you can. Everyone can do something. It's just fear is that. Even myself right now, like what I was doing, I meditate the gratitude as well. It does help me to say, if God can trust me, I read the scripture and say, He says anything you ask in my name, that means He trusts me to call out His name. So I should trust myself, and I hadn't do it anyway. And that's what it's about. And also learning, when you do things. Repetition, and the power of repetition is very, very powerful. When you fear something and you do it anyway, and in the end, and also make sure you are surrounded by the right people. Any audience that are watching, if you're doing something, please make sure you are surrounded people that can help you, not so that you're not enough. It's like when I'm here, I listen to Nick. He's not his industry. Like coaching is something that is left his job, different thing, and then he entered this career coaching. And for me, when I'm listening to him, he gives me, there's something that I'm learning from him. I'm learning things. If I want to go for something new, I can do it. If he can, what stops me? So those are the things that we learn from each other as well. So, if any audience, okay, Nick, if audience are watching right now and they want to connect with you with the confidence, and they are in this job where they are stuck, and feel that this job is holding them back, and they want to, you did it yourself, and can you explain to the audience who you are and where can they find you if they want to connect with you, just to help them with confidence? Because there might be one that has videos on YouTube and see your story, and they want to connect with you and they don't know how. Please explain to our audience.
Sure. So yeah, my story, or what led me here, is a long and bumpy road. No, so I was a police officer for my entire adult life. I've been in various enforcement jobs since I was 19 years old, and I'm now 43. So well over half my life was spent in that world, between policing and different security jobs and customs and prisoner transport and all sorts of interesting, I guess, places along the way. I worked, and then in policing, I worked a lot in drug enforcement. I worked undercover, and in a lot of gang suppression stuff. So working with the kind of the worst of what society has to offer and trying to manage them in a way that maximizes public safety. So that was my entire life up until fairly recently. So in early 2020, I knew that a lot of things weren't right in my life, and it wasn't in alignment for me anymore, policing, I mean. And so I actually took some of your guys' advice without even knowing it, but took some baby steps at that point. And for me, that was, it was a major diet change. And I started meditating. And so that was in early 2020. And through that, and then starting to actually be honest with myself in terms of that my career wasn't in alignment for me, and then also recognizing the health detriments that career was putting on me. And originally it was sleep, so I was finding my sleep was really not good. I was working in a unit where we worked 4 12-hour night shifts in a row, and I was just not able to sleep in between my night shifts. So by the time I was at the end of 4 12-hours shifts in a row, I was just useless. I was no good at work. I was no good at home. It would take me several days to even feel normal again, and then it would be time to go back to work. And so I just was honest and talked to my doctor, and it basically ended up in my hours getting restricted, and then which led to a position that was a lot more suited for me at the time, working day shift from home. And then so that was really good for me for a short time. And then just the way the world progressed, this was in this basically spring of 2020. And then that's when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. And then I was working in an online capacity in policing. And that online world then became like the worst place to be that you could ever imagine. So yeah, coming from a guy who used to buy drugs from drug dealers and get in their cars and buy an ounce of meth here and then go and do this other buy, like that online world was way worse than getting into a drug dealer's car any day. And so that eventually, through the course of the summer, led to my, I guess, just my being knew that it was time to actually deal with the traumas that I'd collected in my career. And I had a breakthrough at work. Most people call it a breakdown, and I definitely called it a breakdown for a long time. But looking back now, it was 100% a breakthrough. And it was just my body telling me that it was time to deal effectively and thoroughly with those traumas. And so that led me on the past basically 2-year journey to deal with those traumas. And through that, obviously seeing that policing was not in alignment for me for a number of reasons. Big one is that I've changed so much in my own journey that if I were to go back into policing, I would just re-traumatize myself, and I'd be back in that same position I was 2 years ago when I had my breakthrough. And while, don't get me wrong, the breakthrough is good, I don't really want to have another one, at least in regards to policing. And so that was, just moving forward and realizing that wasn't in alignment for me, and then finding out what actually was. And so for me, it's starting a fashion company, a clothing company that's in alignment, that's locally made, that's made with healthy fibers, that gives back to causes that I believe in, and just everything about it is in alignment. And so in that basically giant transition from policing to fashion, with no background at all in fashion, I've had to push through a lot of fear. So it's been a constant battle. But I actually really like what you were talking about earlier there, Dr. Burgett, and that was how it is natural, and it is trying to keep you safe, and it's beneficial in a lot of cases. I think it's for me, it's distinguishing what is trying to keep me safe and what is holding me back. And I'm at a point now where I look at, there's fear on one side, so you can push through your fear, or you can have regret because you didn't try whatever it is or push through that. And I'm at a point where I would much rather deal with the fear in whatever way that works for me, rather than have that regret to look back at the end of my life, or maybe even sooner, but and be like, oh, I wish I would have done that, or I wonder what would have happened if I would have actually went for this thing. That, to me, that causes me, that actually gives me fear to think about that, regret. So pushing through it actually makes it quite a bit easier. And then just knowing too, for me, that you can either be comfortable or you can grow. And again, I'd much rather be on this growth path, while certainly not always easy. There's a lot of rough days, absolutely. But in order to grow and become the highest version of myself, it's just the life I've chosen, basically. So yeah, I'm definitely, and Nomsa, you mentioned, I think, about coaching, and I'm not in a coaching role at all. My goal is to just get my story, I guess, out to the world, to show people that it is possible to make these, I guess, major changes in your life, and maybe inspire someone or give someone some sort of comfort along their own journey. So yeah, the people can definitely follow along, and that's something I'm called to do more. Amanda mentioned it, is share more of my story authentically on social media. So people can follow me along at on my Instagram, and it's flow.state.designs on Instagram, and also have a TikTok channel, I guess, and that's Flow State Designs as well. And yeah, that's basically my story.
I love your story. Every time you tell it, I get something new from it. What I was thinking about as both of you were talking was about how, because I'm a teacher, and so how kids will avoid something that they're not good at, or that they don't want to do, or that they're fearful of. And especially it arises a lot with certain kids in math. And they will do just about anything to avoid doing a math task. But then when you finally like sit with them and they start to get it, they get so excited about the fact that they get it. And then two, once you've got something, then it just is easier the next time and easier the next time. So it's thinking about your website design, and like, once you've done this once, the next time you go to build a website or to do something similar, it's going to be so much easier because you already know how to do it. And that's the same with anything that we've actually truly learned, is that the next time we go to do it, it may take us a few minutes to figure it out. Every time I go in to build something on my website, I'm like, how do I do this again? I'm like fiddling around with it. But then eventually I figure it out. But if I never stepped into that challenge of learning something new to build a website, then I would have zero knowledge of it, and I would be right back at square one again. But I'm not, because I've already learned some of it. So then I can just go in and keep editing or keep learning. And what I really like about teaching is that there's always building blocks, right? And once we've learned something, that's a next step into helping us get to the next step, And so when we're learning along the way, we're actually, like, something that seems like unattainable, completely unattainable, is actually just building blocks that you just need to get there. And so when you think of like your big goal, sometimes we just avoid it and don't do anything because we don't know how we're going to get from here all the way up to here, right? And so we just avoid like the children do when they're avoiding their math task. And what we really need to do is just take that first step, because once we take that first step, the next step's going to be there. And then that next step is going to lead us to the next step. And so it's just this constant like building and learning and building and learning and building and learning. But in order to get to our destination, we have to take the first step. And I love what you've done with taking the first steps into getting your business started with your fashion design business, because it's just, and it's such a powerful story too, to go from one completely opposite career into a very, very different career. And that's such an inspiring story for people to know. And one of the things that I love to do is help people get their creative stories out there. And so one of the things that I do is I'm working on getting some collaborative books out to the world. Those are up on my website if there's people that have a story that resonates with one of the book projects that I'm doing. And I know Nick's written his story for me, and I'm excited to read it. I've just been so busy at work that I haven't had a chance to read through it yet, but I'm collecting stories of people who have empowered their lives with a different version of education. And so it's like rethinking what it means to be educated and stories of empowerment that isn't the traditional school route, because so often we're brainwashed into thinking that you have to finish high school, go to university, get a job, then you're with all this debt, and then that's how you're going to be happy and be successful. But that's not always necessarily the case. There's multiple routes, and I don't want anyone to ever think that they can't be successful because they don't have a degree. So many people can be successful and learn along the way. There's not just one path for people. And so that's something that I really try to inspire in people, is how can they use their creative gifts to empower their lives and also spread their creativity and joy to empower others throughout the world.
I love that you are I love that you are a teacher
Move on
and
to
hello.
Abigail. Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Move on
I've been
to. Do you like to? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I've been speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, you've been speaking, but before you make a comment to what Amanda said, can you please tell the audience who you are, where they can find you, please?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, and that actually will fold in with my comment to Amanda. But yeah, I was going to say that I love how Amanda, you are a teacher, and that you are all at the same time helping people to understand that there are more ways to happiness than having magnanimous degree. And that's with me. I have postdoctorates and being a doctor in oncology and all these things, and and that is my background. My background is I'm a board certified veterinarian oncologist with degree, letters of my the degree will come off the papers, not just the end of the line, so to say. And I know many people who are that way, and they are having such a challenging time in life, so to say. And that's so true that there are other way to happiness besides just having all this degree. It's nothing wrong in being a doctor and all that. Absolutely nothing wrong with being able to have your degree and your knowledge. Like my knowledge being a doctor definitely help being an oncologist, definitely help my work now that I am a full-time grief coach, helping people move through and beyond their grief. But it is something that there are more than one way to accomplish what it is that we would want. And sometimes it doesn't involve pushing so much with one thing that if it doesn't go with you. And that's actually take me to the other comments I was going to make with Nick. It's wonderful that we understand that sometimes we need to push that smoke screen, so to say. Henry David Thoreau, I believe, is the one that says the fear is like a smoke screen that it was so scary on what's the other side. And sometimes we want to push through that. But sometimes there's also, like if you ever try to push something, sometimes it's a lot harder. And then you go around the other side of whatever these things that you're trying to push, and you pull it along, or you just drag it. It's kind of like if you have a suitcase. Anybody has those rolling kind of suitcase that you can drag along your side? If you try to push them coming from it, they kind of like tumble and all over the place, and then it's like it's not getting anywhere. But then if you go around the other side and you even just drag it alongside, or you walk a little bit in front of it and you pull it along with you, then it's so much easier. And to me, it's one of those, when I face fear, sometimes we push through, but a lot of time I just say, knowing what fear is, and it's meant to protect us. Really, it's meant to protect us. Back in the day, when we were cave woman and cavemen, I just would say, you know what, I'm going to thank this fear. I thank you here. I notice this fear, and I notice that my mind going through 15 different directions, imagining the worst scenario. And I said, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me here. And this is something I learned a million years ago in my training to become a master life coach. And I said, just thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me here. I hear you. I hear you. And this is something, if you face any feelings that is uncomfortable, you can say to this feeling, whether it's fear, whether it's guilt or something else, or anger. I hear you. I hear you. Thank you for protecting me. And at the same time, I can see what this is, and I know what's the other outcome going to be, even though this is a change and unusual. And therefore, we're going to take just this baby step, back to the baby step. And then you can see with me how it is going to be. And then, so you're not fighting inside of yourself so much and creating so much friction. And it's kind of like pulling a table or a large piece of furniture on carpet with all the frictions, versus smoothing it out on, if you were to put those sliders, so to say. That is another thing that I find very helpful in releasing our fear, by kind of sort of like becoming diplomatic with it, sort of like make friend with your fear and say, yeah, thank you. I hear that you're gonna want to protect me, but at the same time, that was the primitive brain, and here's the logical brain, and I know what I'm doing. I stand guard in the quarter of my mind, and this is what we can take the next baby step. And so for our audience, give that a try and see how that goes. What about you, Numsa? Do you ever make friend with your fear?
Of course, the fear is my best friend, because it pretends not to like me, but actually does like me. Fear, yes. I love when they say you have to think the fear. I used to fear a lot before. As the time goes by, when you do the more training, the more knowledge you have. And also when I did my psychology degree, I did it for myself, because to me it was a therapy, and I'm really glad that I did it, because there were things that I took for granted in life. And when you say you think fear, like when I walk on the street, I never really acknowledge that I have built the roads and stuff. And when you get in psychology, you get to be grateful of the in life. And when you feel, you question yourself. So it does help me to question myself, why am I doing this? And also to thank fear, to say I am aware of this fear, and like Nico was saying, not traumatizing yourself over and over with fear. So I always do that. And I think more meditation, it just helped me a lot, like removing fear, removing anxiety. Like a single day when we work, we face challenges through our businesses, we face challenges with our customers and stuff. And when things don't go how we want, we start questioning our abilities, if we are good enough for all these things that we are doing. But when I meditate, it makes me realize that it's just part of life. If things don't go my way, or things, there's things that are like if there is a stagnation or things are not moving forward, it makes me realize that life is a journey. I have to learn to be patient, and I have to learn to take a step back and actually take a break a day, because we tend to think that we on and on and on. If fear comes, I go, and if fear comes, I just have to relax and say, okay, I've got my earphones, my best friend, I talk to myself. I put them on and I'm listening to music and I'm about to do something, and the fear comes, I communicate. And I've got a guy at work, he's me to communicate with my son. He says, one day, you will win a battle with this fear. Even today, this morning, he says, I said to him, yourself, because sometimes he is working and you hear him sorting things out and he's talking, and I'm like, who are you talking to? He says, I am having a battle with myself. I've not won the battle yet. I am still fighting. So I'm like, okay, sounds like plan. So when fear comes, anyone who is watching, know that it's a battle that you can beat it. It's a battle that you have to know that you are good enough. Because just because you have fear, it doesn't mean that you are not good enough. But it is very, very important to acknowledge your fear. What are you fearing? And write it down, your feelings. When you're fearing something, write it down. I have lots of diary that I write things down. Sometimes when I back and read it, it feels like it's been written by somebody else. Honestly, I know about you guys, but when I go back and read my journals, not the ones that where I write the things, but some of them, the ones that I write my feelings, it feels like what is going on? So it's nice to write your feelings when you're going through something. Write them. If you're feeling fear, write them down and go back and read it, so you can realize, you can acknowledge it. It does help. I write everything. When I'm feeling something, I write it down, and when I go back, maybe 2 weeks later, I go back and read it. I'm like, what is this person? So it does help. Amanda, before we go, would you like to tell the audience, in case they are watching you and some of them might not know who you are, and how can they find you?
Well, I kind of talked about that already, that I'm a teacher and I'm an author and I help people connect to their unique creative capacities. I'm on Instagram and my website's right here, Art, Mindfulness, and Creativity. I also have a Facebook page and a TikTok, and so everything. But yeah, I'll just give my.
Are you on TikTok?
Yeah, I just started one.
Are you on TikTok?
It's kind of fun. Yeah. For videos, it's really great. You get a lot more views than anywhere else, which is amazing. But yeah, there's just TikTok was a fear of mine, actually. Because so often I like look at the things my daughter looks at and I think, man, the world is getting dumber. And then I put like educational content on, and then like, oh, I get like, well, one of my things got over 1,000 views, which is amazing. But they're like, I'm looking at mine, I'm like, oh, like 100 views here, 100 views there. And then I see these like people dancing in banana costumes getting millions of views. And I'm like, our world is getting dumber. But I still am putting content out there, even though it's a fear of mine to put educational content on TikTok. But it actually, it can feel inspiring at the same time too, because eventually, even if it helps one person, then it did its job. So yeah, just step into that fear and go with it, because good things can come. Good things can come from you stepping into your power and being unapologetically yourself, and embracing what you are creative at. That's my 2 cents for you for today, is embracing your creative gifts. Nick, what's yours?
I would just say, just keeping that perspective that, and Dr. Burgess talked about it, but that fear is there for a reason, right? Evolutionary wise. And I was listening to something here recently, and they were talking about a fear of public speaking, but it translates to a fear of basically putting yourself out there or going against the, the norm or what society would expect of you. And they explained that that's because as more primitive beings, when we lived in tribes, if you spoke out or got ostracized from your tribe, that meant death. So it makes total sense that why we're so scared to put ourselves out there, because that fear it's evolutionary, and it makes total sense when you put it in that perspective. And then just one more thought, and that's if you were to go back a year ago and think about what you were fearful of or what was going on for you that was causing you static in your life, is it still an issue a year later? Like, is it still a big thing for you? Has it meant the end of your social life or whatever it is? And the answer, I'm guessing, for most people, and certainly for myself, is what I was worried about a year ago is like completely just worked itself out and was a non-issue. So I think just having some perspective with that is helpful.
I love that what Nick says, that it's become a non-issue. I would say for our audience who are listening to this, or anyone listening to this, fear is part of our normal and natural process. And at the same time, whether this is in the past where you have to face the saber-toothed tiger, or now that you have the saber-toothed tiger of your mind, it is, in general, you'll succeed a lot more if you have somebody to support you. If you fight a saber-toothed tiger alone, you might not make it back then. And the same thing now, allow a community, allow people who are knowledgeable about this, allow somebody who has been through the path to support you, such that you're not alone. And then you'll be able to, on a day-to-day basis, much more likely to take that baby step on a consistent manner, and then you'll be up to your Mount Everest before you know it, rather than being stuck down there with, like, I don't know what's up there. So connect with us if you are facing some challenge, and would welcome and allow yourself some support, so you'll triumph over your saber-tooth tiger. What about you, Numsa? Thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ike. Thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you so much. And I'm just wondering why my camera keep closing my eyes. In fact, my eyes get closed if I look down. So I'm just wondering. So what I would say, somebody like Nick, thank you so much for choosing this topic. And I know there's some people out there who are scared of that is holding them back. And, just know the power of repetition. Whatever you want to do in life, when I see this from the beginning, that is for me as well. People are going, because people always have something to say, and trust me, they never run out of anything to say. So people are going to, you do good or you do bad, and the only thing that you need to understand is you're doing the things I do. And if you're doing it for love, passionate, and you want to serve out, and you're passionate about something, just go for it. It doesn't matter what you think, because if I believe in your dreams, it does not mean that your dreams is not good enough. So you have to understand that it's only you that can make things happen. It's only you that can communicate without fear. It's a battle. Fear is a battle. You can battle it and win the fight one day. One of the guys in the office is still battling fear, and one day I'm hoping that I'm going to walk into the office and it's going to say, today I have won the fight. So that's what I'm hoping. That is the fear. You always have a battle with it. And in order for you to beat it is to tell it, I'm in charge. So I tell my fear that I'm in charge. And I tell it that I believe in God as well, because God He created me. So if you are not my creator, you cannot tell me that I'm not good enough. So that means fear cannot tell me that I'm not good enough. And also meditate, please. Have rituals, things that you do, not something crazy. Just do some normal things, ritual, prayer machine, anything that can help you to be the person that you get to where you need to go. Just do it. And if you're feeling lazy, just force yourself, just do it. I pray in the morning. By the time I get up by the time I get out of the house at 8, I've done my social media, I've done my meditation, my prayer, and I'm good to go. So thank you so much for watching us at Ngozi Talk Shows. We're here to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. And if you want to connect with these coaches, do connect with them. Dr. Bigot is the coach, and Nick has a story. You can see him now. He has a story. He was never where he is now. He was somebody who earns lots of money, and he didn't know who he was. But now he can tell you who he is and why he does what he does. But before, it was completely a different story. And Amanda, she's a mindful children books author. She writes books, and just connect with her if you have dreams that you want to go for. Me, I am a love harmony. I harmonize love. If you are looking for love and you're scared, you come to me. I don't fix you. You fix yourself. Show you how to fix yourself, and not how I fixed myself. You want to fix yourself based on your story. Then we're good to go. You get to where you need to go when it comes to relationship. And so if you are looking for those different things in your life to move, just get in touch with us, and I'll connect you with the speakers. You can go to my website, send me an email, or just call me straight away. The phone of my office, and they'll connect me. If I'm not there, connect me to my mobile. They will let you know that I'm not, because I'm always out with the clients. God bless and live with grace, everyone.